Hello, my name is Lisa Snowdon. I am a broadcaster, an author, and a big advocate for women's health and empowering women. I was in my early 40s when I first started experiencing menopausal symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms, and I had no idea what was happening to me. The word perimenopause wasn't even in my vocabulary. I never got taught about menopause in school, let alone perimenopause. It was periods, pregnancy, puberty, and that was it. So looking back, early 40s, all of a sudden, out of the blue, felt like I'd been hit by a train. Anxiety, depression, feeling over-emotional, feeling like I couldn't process stress, couldn't function. And yeah, the symptoms kind of got worse and worse throughout the years. It played a really big part in my day-to-day life. I remember my poor partner, George, didn't know what was happening to me. He was very patient, very loving, very supportive, but also I could see the confusion in his eyes when I would just literally be crying and angry and feeling just like bouts of rage. I'd go from 0 to 100 and just see this red mist, and he was always my punching bag, basically, emotionally. I was really mean to him. But it also really affected my confidence, where I felt like I didn't want to go to work. I didn't trust that I could go to work. My brain wasn't functioning properly. So it really did impact my everyday life massively. So I first went to the doctor to try and kind of get a handle on what was happening to me. And you have such a short amount of time when you're in the doctor's surgery. And I just burst into tears. I just completely lost it. And it was just like, I was sobbing uncontrollably. And he was just like, I really think that, you're depressed, like you need something to help you. And I was like, but I don't think that's it. I just knew that there was something else happening to me, but I didn't know what it was. So even though it felt like a cop-out, I took the antidepressants and I did start taking them for a while. But it didn't really help at all, not at all. So I stopped taking them, came off them carefully, of course. And then the next few years, it just kind of got worse and worse, really. And I was still completely at a loss to what was happening. I just thought that maybe this was my life now. This is maybe how I'm going to be. I've maybe pushed myself too hard, worked too hard, and there's other things that obviously kind of come into play, whether it's bereavement or stress or all of those kind of things that we have to deal with day to day. So yeah, it was a really tricky time, and it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years later that I finally spoke to somebody who kind of identified that it was probably my hormones. And she said, maybe it's perimenopause. And I was like, it can't be. Like, I'm only 45, I'm only 46. She was like, no, it can be. So I went to see a hormone specialist, and he confirmed what she'd said, and that was that I was perimenopausal. And it was really brutal, actually, because I remember being in the office with him in his surgery, and he'd said to me, you know what this means now? This means that you probably can't have children and that you're getting old. And I just remember feeling like I was being kicked in the stomach, and I was digging my nails into my hands because I thought, I don't want to cry in front of this stranger. But he was so unsympathetic and no empathy whatsoever. And I spent a lot of money with that doctor, and he prescribed me some progesterone cream, which now I've learned so much more about what us ladies need. And it's estrogen that we need first and foremost, along with progesterone. And so he gave me the progesterone. I took the cream transdermally, didn't really touch the sides. Then I got recommended to go to another private doctor through a friend, and she was having a great time. She was like, oh, he's brilliant, I feel fabulous now. And so I was like, okay, great, I'll pay and go and see him. And he basically did the same thing. He did blood tests, more scans, and also prescribed me progesterone cream. And it wasn't until the end of 2020 that I first met a brilliant female doctor, because it's just a little sidebar, the 3 previous doctors were all male. There are some great male doctors. The 3 that I saw, unfortunately, weren't. But this lady doctor, female doctor, Naomi Potter, was incredible. And she was like, why are you not taking estrogen? And I was like, I don't know, why am I not taking estrogen? And that was the game changer for me. Pretty much within the first 3 weeks of starting on the estrogen, I started to feel like me again. It was so powerful. I just couldn't believe it. I'd been lost for about 7 years, and not recognized who I was. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm sleeping again. My hot flushes are going. I'm not waking up in the night completely like covered in sweat and then shivering and having to change the sheets. I'm not getting up and peeing all through the night. I had energy to get to the gym. I wasn't aching as much anymore. I was nicer to be around. I think George was like, oh my God, it's the girl I first fell in love with. She's back again. So yeah, it was a big game changer, and it took about 3 weeks, and it was just like, oh, hallelujah. I can't tell you the relief that I felt when I started using the estrogen, which now I've obviously learned so much more about what we need, us ladies, and what starts to decline and what starts to deplete. And there's about 60 different symptoms and counting in the menopause and perimenopause. And, you know, it can be anything from hair changes to brain fog to skin changes to eye changes. Gums get sore, teeth start moving, gut issues, aches and pains. There's so many different symptoms. Thankfully, we don't all struggle with all 60, but it kind of moves and shape shifts and changes throughout, you know, our kind of in our 40s. So yeah, what started with the anxiety and stress and panic attacks then moved into weight gain, sleepless nights, hot flushes. So yeah, it's a tricky time to navigate, and I definitely felt really lost for quite a few years. But as soon as I got onto the estrogen, it really did make a huge change, and I could start getting back, owning my life again, doing things that I want to do. I got my sleep back on track. I got my weight back down. I had energy to go to the gym. I didn't ache as much. And I certainly got my confidence back, which was a really debilitating side effect. And I think that affects so many women. Because you just don't know who you are anymore. You don't recognize yourself. So yeah, it's definitely been, my 40s were quite challenging, but my 50s, I'm loving them. My advice to anyone who's starting to struggle with anxiety, their mental health, any of the symptoms that are associated with perimenopause is to get some help. Don't be ashamed. Don't see it as something that's taboo. You know, we have suffered and struggled for so long in silence, us women, and now we know there's so much more information out there. Get that information, read up on it, speak to your friends. I guarantee there's so many more people going through what you're going through, but a lot of people are just too afraid to identify that that could be perimenopause, and so many young girls or women are afraid of what this might mean. But I have to say, once you get a handle on it and you get the right help, the support, the love, and if you do want to go down the route of HRT, it can really, you can step back into your power, you can own this new phase in your life, and you can get back to doing all the things you want to do. You know, a lot of women want to leave their jobs, a lot of women want to leave their families, their partners, because you feel so low and you feel so alone. It doesn't have to be like that. So communicate, keep talking, keep asking questions, go out there and just find, you know, some help, and do your research as well.